Imagine opening a book that reveals the future of the world, a future full of mysteries, cosmic battles, destruction, and the promise of a new beginning. That book is the Book of Revelation, written by the Apostle John while he was in exile on the island of Patmos. More than just a text, it is a window into prophetic visions that challenge our understanding. But which of these prophecies are the most terrifying? And what do they really mean? The Bible presents Revelation to us as a book of revelations. It not only describes the end times, but also invites us to reflect on our choices and the ultimate fate of humanity. Among its pages, we find 10 prophecies that stand out for their impact and depth. They are not just warnings, they are calls to awaken our faith and resilience in the face of the unknown. And what makes these prophecies even more disturbing is that many of them seem to echo the events we are witnessing today. The first prophecy that hooks us into the narrative is one of the best known, the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. This vision, described in Revelation 6 verses 1 to 8, presents 4 figures riding horses of different colors, each symbolizing a destructive force that will be unleashed on the world. The rider of the white horse represents conquest, a figure who brings with him relentless wars and conflicts. His arrival starts a chain of events that plunges humanity into despair. Soon after, the rider of the red horse appears, symbolizing war. He brings not only battles, but also the breakdown of any idea of peace. In the wake of his passing, the rider of the black horse appears, representing hunger and scarcity. With him, inequality becomes evident and millions struggle to survive. Finally, the most feared of all, the rider of the pale horse, who personifies death itself. He not only reaps lives, but signals the complete collapse of humanity as we know it. But the horsemen are not mere symbols. They represent forces that we already see at work in our world: global conflicts, economic crises, and devastating pandemics. And this leads us to an inevitable question. Are these prophecies already being fulfilled? Or are they just preludes to something much bigger? The next terrifying glimpse takes us to the Great Tribulation, described by Jesus in Matthew 24 verses 21 to 22 and detailed in Revelation. This is an era of unprecedented suffering, where humanity will face calamities that defy all logic. Jesus warned, "Then there will be great tribulation, such as has not been since the beginning of the world until now, nor ever will be." The tribulation is not just a test of faith, but a scenario of extremes. Those who remain faithful, according to Revelation 7 verse 14, will be rescued and purified. But to get there, they will have to face persecution, natural disasters, and a world in chaos. It's a time of choices: resist with faith or succumb to the pressures. These first glimpses of the apocalypse not only awaken fear, but also plant seeds of hope. They remind us that, even in the darkest hours, there is a purpose. And with each unveiled prophecy, we are confronted with a reality that seems ever closer. Are we ready for what is to come? And those are just the first 2 prophecies. Over the next few moments, you'll discover even more details about the events that will shape the end times. Get ready, because the worst and most revealing is yet to come. As we delve deeper into the book of Revelation, the glimpses become even more intense and terrifying. If you thought the Four Horsemen and the Great Tribulation were scary, wait until you discover the 7 bowls of God's wrath and the enigmatic mark of the beast. These are not just stories, but warnings that challenge us to look at the present and ask, are we prepared? The book of Revelation presents the 7 bowls as a symbol of God's final judgment. Revealed in Revelation 16, these bowls are carried by angels and poured out on earth, unleashing calamities that increase in intensity and make it clear that there will be nowhere to run. The first bowl brings painful wounds on those who have worshipped the beast and accepted its mark. Imagine humanity, scarred by wrong choices, suffering not only spiritually, but physically. But it doesn't stop there. The second and third bowls turn the seas and rivers into blood. With water becoming useless, survival becomes impossible and chaos intensifies. And then comes the fourth bowl. The sun's heat rises unbearably, scorching the earth and its inhabitants. This is a scenario where no one is safe, the whole world is affected. The fifth bowl plunges the kingdom of the beast into darkness, a metaphor for the confusion and destruction of the evil forces that had risen up. But all this is just the prelude to the sixth bowl. Here, the focus shifts to the final war. The river Euphrates dries up, allowing armies to gather for the most epic confrontation in history, the Battle of Armageddon. It is in this preparation for the battle between good and evil that humanity reaches its peak of tension. And then the seventh bowl is poured out, bringing thunder, lightning, and an earthquake so powerful that the entire structure of the earth is shaken. These events make us wonder, is this a representation of the inevitable collapse that humanity faces because of its choices? Or is it a clear warning that there is still time to change? But if the bowls of God's wrath seem apocalyptic, nothing compares to the mystery and gravity of the mark of the beast, one of the most debated and feared symbols in the entire Bible. In Revelation 13 verses 16 to 17, we read, "To all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, there was given a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, so that no one could buy or sell except the one who had the mark." This mark, associated with the number 666, is not just a physical symbol, it is an act of loyalty to the Antichrist and the evil system he represents. Those who accept the mark join the rebellion against God, exchanging eternity for a false temporary security. But what does this mean for us? Is today's world already setting the stage for a system where our freedom will be conditioned to something so profound? The implications of the mark of the beast are frightening because they touch on a point we all face: choices. Imagine a world where without this mark you can't buy food, pay your bills, or even survive. The pressure to accept it would be immense. But for those who refuse, the divine promise is clear: faithfulness will be rewarded, even in the midst of suffering. The text goes on to warn us about the agents who promote this mark. Among them are the Antichrist and the false prophet. The Antichrist is described as a powerful and deceptive leader, someone who will unite nations under a false sense of peace, but who secretly works for the spiritual destruction of humanity. The false prophet, on the other hand, acts as a religious leader, using signs and miracles to convince people to follow the beast. They not only deceive, but lead multitudes down a path of eternal perdition. But there is hope, even in the midst of all this. In Revelation 14 verses 9 to 10, we are reminded that those who reject the mark and remain faithful to God will have a place in eternity. It's an immense challenge, but also proof that, even in the worst of times, there is a path to redemption. As we move forward, it becomes clear that these prophecies are not only warnings about the future, but also an invitation to reflect on the present. The question remains, in a world where choices are becoming increasingly difficult, what would you do? Would we resist the pressure or give in out of fear and convenience? These crucial moments in the narrative prepare us for the even more impactful events to come. What will be revealed in the next prophecy could redefine everything you thought you knew about humanity's ultimate fate. Stay with me, because there is still much to unravel. If the 7 bowls of God's wrath and the mark of the beast already sounded terrifying, what comes next takes the apocalypse to another level of intensity and meaning. Get ready to explore the Battle of Armageddon and the Fall of Babylon, 2 events that symbolize the final confrontation between good and evil and the destruction of the corrupt system that has led humanity away from God. The Battle of Armageddon, described in Revelation 16 verse 16 and detailed in Revelation 19, is not just a physical battle, it is the spiritual and cosmic climax of human history. The word Armageddon comes from the Hebrew Harmageddon, which means Mount of Megiddo. Historically, Megiddo was the scene of many decisive battles in Israel's history, but here it becomes the symbolic setting for the final clash between the forces of Christ and those of the Antichrist. The vision begins with the sky opening up and Jesus Christ appearing as the supreme warrior, riding on a white horse. In Revelation 19 verses 11 to 16, he is described as faithful and true, with eyes like flames of fire and a sword coming out of his mouth, representing the power of his word. The multitudes of heaven follow him, also mounted on white horses, dressed in fine, pure linen, ready for combat. On the other side, the Antichrist and his armies gather, fueled by deceit and rebellion. But what happens next is unexpected. It's not an even battle, as Hollywood movies often portray. It is an overwhelming victory for the Lamb of God. With the word of Christ, the armies of evil are destroyed, and the Antichrist and the false prophet are captured and thrown into the lake of fire, a place of eternal torment. The defeat is complete, but the impact of this victory is only the beginning. While Armageddon symbolizes Christ's final victory, the fall of Babylon shows us God's judgment against the corrupt system that has led humanity away from him. Babylon, described in Revelation 17 and 18, is not just a physical city. It is the symbol of a global system of corruption, idolatry, and greed that has seduced the nations. Depicted as a woman dressed in purple and scarlet, adorned with gold and jewels, Babylon personifies the seductive appeal of materialism and power, but she also carries the cup of her own destruction. In Revelation 18 verse 2, an angel proclaims its fall with the striking words, "Fallen. Babylon the Great is fallen." She has become a dwelling place for demons and a haven for every unclean bird. This announcement is not just an isolated event. It is the collapse of everything that humanity has built in defiance of God. The trade that enriched kings and merchants is interrupted, lust turns to despair, and what once seemed unshakable is reduced to ashes. The most intriguing thing about the fall of Babylon is the reaction of those who profited from its corrupt system. Revelation 18 verses 9 to 19 shows us the kings and merchants lamenting their destruction, not out of repentance, but because they have lost their wealth and privileges. They watch helplessly from afar as Babylon is consumed in flames. This lament reveals a dark truth. Many are more attached to material comfort and power than to justice and truth. But in contrast to this lament, heaven is filled with joy. In Revelation 19 verses 1 to 2, there is a heavenly celebration because God's righteous judgment has been carried out. The fall of Babylon is a watershed, marking the end of a world ruled by sin and the beginning of a new kingdom of justice. What do these two prophecies teach us? Firstly, Armageddon reminds us that evil, however powerful it may seem, does not have the final word. Christ is the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and his victory is certain. Secondly, the fall of Babylon challenges us to reflect on our own priorities. Are we putting our trust in corrupt systems and material possessions, or are we building our lives on God's eternal foundation? These questions lead us to a crucial point: what happens next? The judgment of Babylon and Armageddon set the stage for something extraordinary, the establishment of a new heaven and a new earth. But before we get to that glorious promise, we still have to go through the most frightening event of all, the Last Judgment. Are you prepared to face the consequences of every choice? The next chapter of this story will reveal the conclusion of everything and the eternal destiny of humanity. Don't miss it, because what lies ahead could change the way you see your own life. The stage is set. After the fall of Babylon and the defeat of the forces of evil at Armageddon, the book of Revelation takes us to one of the most powerful and impactful scenes in the entire Bible, the Last Judgment. This event marks the climax of human history and the beginning of a new chapter in eternity. In Revelation 20 verses 11 to 15, the Apostle John describes an impressive vision, a great white throne and the one who sits on it. Earth and heaven flee from his presence, and there is nowhere to hide. Everyone, great and small, kings and peasants, rich and poor, gathers before the throne. It's the moment when all the masks fall away, and each person is confronted with the truth of their life. And the books were opened, Revelation 20 verse 12. These books contain the record of everything we have done, said and thought. It's a frightening moment, because nothing remains hidden. However, there is another book, called the Book of Life. In it are the names of those who have accepted God's grace and have been washed clean by the blood of the Lamb. The difference between the books is clear. One reflects justice, while the other reveals mercy. The judgment is direct. Those whose names are not in the Book of Life are cast into the lake of fire, a place of eternal separation from God. It is the final sentence for sin and rebellion. But for those who have trusted in God, the Last Judgment is not a cause for fear, but for hope. It is the end of all suffering, pain, and injustice. After the judgment, John presents us with a vision that surpasses all expectations: the new heaven and the new earth. In Revelation 21 verses 1 to 4 he writes, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more." This new creation is not just a physical place, it is a state of perfection, where God and humanity live in total harmony. The description of the New Jerusalem, the holy city, is breathtaking. It descends from heaven like a bride adorned for the bridegroom. John describes it as a place where God will dwell with his people forever. There will be no more tears, death, mourning, outcry, or pain, because the old has passed away. Every tear will be wiped away, every wound healed, and every suffering forgotten. The New Jerusalem is more than a place. It is the realization of God's eternal plan, a world where there is no more sin, corruption, or evil. God himself is the light of the city, and there is no need for sun or moon, for his glory illuminates everything. The gates of the city never close, symbolizing eternal security and peace. But what makes this vision so striking is the implicit invitation it makes. In Revelation 22 verse 17, the Spirit and the bride say, "Come." This call is universal. Everyone who thirsts for justice, peace, and redemption is invited to participate in this new creation. It is an opportunity to leave behind everything that holds us back and embrace the life that God offers. However, the book of Revelation ends with a warning. In Revelation 22 verses 18 to 19, John warns against any attempt to add or remove words from this prophecy. The message is clear: the words of this book are not just symbolic or poetic. They are real and carry eternal consequences. This last section of Revelation challenges us to make a decision. The Last Judgment and the New Creation show us that eternity is inevitable. The question is not whether we will face these realities, but how we will prepare for them. Will we choose to live a life in line with God's purpose, or will we continue to follow our own paths? Christ's final triumph, the defeat of evil, and the promise of a new beginning offer us hope. But they also remind us that God's grace demands a response. So the question remains: are you ready for what comes next? The prophecy ends with a promise: "Yes, I am coming soon," Revelation 22 verse 20. These words of Jesus are a reminder that the time is always drawing near. The great story of Revelation is not just about destruction and judgment. It's about restoration, redemption, and the triumph of God's love. And now I ask you, where will you be when all this happens? What has this story stirred in your heart? Don't put off what you can decide now. If this video has made you think, leave a comment and share your questions. Subscribe to the channel to continue exploring these deep mysteries, and together, delve even deeper into God's Word. The story doesn't end here. It continues with every choice we make. May we always remember that, however frightening the prophecies may seem, they carry the promise of something wonderful, a future where everything will be new and perfect. May God's light guide each of us there.